I'd like to do three things in the time that I've been given, and I promise you that I'll finish before midnight. The first is to explain a little bit of what I've been involved in creating this new translation of the Zohar. The second is to go over a few highlights of the 10 Sifirot in preparation for a reading that I'll do of part of the Idra Zuta, which Julian has already referred to. I recently completed a wonderful adventure, which was to translate the Zohar into English. And that took me, as Michael mentioned, 18 years. And I want to explain a little bit how this project came to be. There's a family in Chicago, a very wealthy Jewish family, the Pritzker family. They own the whole Hyatt hotel chain and various other businesses. And a woman in the family named Margot Pritzker has a real passion for Kabbalah. She began studying with a rabbi that she knows in Chicago, a man named Yechiel Pupko, from a well-known rabbinic family. And they began studying Parshat HaShavua and Midrash, but she told the rabbi, Margot Pritzker told this rabbi that she wanted to delve into Zohar. She didn't know Aramaic or really much Hebrew, so they began studying an older English translation, what's called the Soncino translation, named for that famous printing family from Soncino. And they began studying the Zohar in English. But after a few months, the rabbi revealed to Mrs. Pritzker that this is not a very good translation. Why is this not a good translation? It skips anything difficult, and it skips anything erotic. Now that comes to about 1/2 of the Zohar. So the rabbi said to Mrs. Pritzker, or Mrs. Pritzker said to the rabbi, it's unclear who said to whom, let's do a new translation. And the Pritzker family has enough resources, she felt she was able to fund a new translation of the Zohar. So they approached me. She had read some books I had written on Kabbalah, and they approached me through a friend, through a mutual friend of ours, and they said, we would like you to take on this project of translating the Zohar. Now, I heard of this, I got a phone call from a friend informing me of this opportunity in 1995. And I was overwhelmed, I was amazed, I was thrilled, but I had some idea of how difficult this would be. So I said, well, I have to think about this. My friend said, of course. So I thought about it for a few days, for a week, for a few weeks, for a month, for a few months. Finally, without having yet met Mrs. Pritzker, I said, okay, I better try this and see if I can handle it. So I took 1 month, it was during my school vacation. I took 1 month, and every day I sat down and translated Zohar for as long as I could handle it, 5 hours, 6 hours. After that month, I decided I am definitely not doing this. It was just too draining. It was too exhausting. And I told my friend, look, this is an amazing opportunity, but I have to say no. My friend said, well, why don't you at least meet with the Pritzkers and tell them no? So that was my mistake. I agreed to meet with Mrs. Pritzker and Rabbi Yechiel Pupko, and I basically tried to explain to them how there already were anthologies of the Zohar, and there were Hebrew translations, but this was just too much to do. And Mrs. Pritzker said, I realize you're hesitant to do it, but if you did do it, how long would it take? I said 12 to 15 years. And she said, you're not scaring me. And somehow when I heard those words, something flipped, something changed inside of my mind, and I blurted out, okay, I'll do it. I think it was almost a dare. I think she was saying to me, I'm not scared, how come you're scared? So I agreed to take it on, and the 12 years or 15 years turned into 18 years, and we finally completed the project about 3 years ago. I composed 9 volumes in English, which cover the Zohar's translation of the commentary on the Torah, Zohar a la Torah, which is basically all of the Mantoue edition, the 3 standard volumes of the Zohar. But there were 3 more volumes that turned into 3 additional volumes. 2 other scholars worked on those under my direction. So the entire edition is 12 volumes. It's called the Zohar Pritzker edition. When I started translating, I thought that I would basically use a standard printed Zohar. And as Julian indicated, I think basically all printed Zohars that you will find in Aramaic follow the basic format of Mantoue. They're corrected, as he showed us, with little words added here and there, but the pagination and the basic text is an imitation of the Mantoue edition. So I thought I would use a good modern standard Aramaic Zohar, but I had access to manuscripts. There are many, many manuscripts of the Zohar. There are approximately 600 manuscripts. What's interesting is that there is no complete manuscript of the Zohar, and there never was. Because as I think you've gathered now from a few of the presentations, and especially Julian's and Daniel Abrams conveyed to us through the wonder of ventriloquism, there never was a full manuscript because the Zohar was never written as one continuous Perush al HaTorah, a commentary on the Torah. Probably the original authors wrote it on 1 parasha or 2 parashiot at a time. And gradually, over decades and centuries, finally through the printers in Italy in the 16th century, we finally have a Zohar on the Torah. So in any case, I had access to these manuscripts. They're scattered around various libraries in Europe, but almost all of them are available in Jerusalem at what's called the Institute for Hebrew Microfilmed Manuscripts. And I started to check these manuscripts, and I realized that the manuscripts are better than the printed edition. Now, how could that be? Because we know that the editors in Mantoue used manuscripts, but what they also did was to improve the text. I say improved in quotation marks, because the Zohar often, for example, the Zohar will quote something from the Talmud, but the Zohar will misquote it. It'll change what's written in the Talmud. The editors wanted to restore it to how it really is in the Talmud. So the editors would try to correct the Zohar, or if the Zohar invents a word, every 15 or 20 pages in the Zohar there'll be a neologism, an invented word. And these words, nobody knows what they really mean. They are found in no dictionary in the world. No Aramaic dictionary in the world includes the neologisms, the invented words of the Zohar. So sometimes a scribe would copy the Zohar and change it, try to turn it back into a more normal word. Basically, every scribe who copied the Zohar tried to improve it. Right, you all know there's a famous Yiddish translation of Shakespeare, verteidigt und verbessert, right, translated and improved. So a lot of the scribes who copied the Zohar tried to improve the text, and the editors in Mantoue continued that process. So what I started to do was to delete from the printed version things that were added. Now, how could I do this? I tried to go back to the earliest manuscripts. I tried to find the oldest, most reliable manuscripts. And so what I ended up doing was preparing each page, before I translated it, preparing each page by correcting it according to what I thought were better readings in the manuscripts. In other words, I agree that it's impossible to find the original Zohar. But what I tried to do was to approach that original by scraping away hundreds of years of what scribes and editors had added. Let me say a word about the translation. What I try to do, and my edition is basically the top of the page translation and the bottom of the page a very extensive commentary in which I explain the symbolism of the Zohar and I quote passages from the Talmud or the Midrash on which the Zohar is based. In the translation, I tried to preserve the strangeness of the Aramaic. because the translation is always bound to fail, right? There's no way that a translation can really convey the power of the original, but I didn't want to make the English too easy. I wanted the English to convey some of the difficulty and some of the weirdness, some of the strangeness of the original Aramaic. And then in the commentary, I would explain what I thought the text meant. When the first two volumes came out, I think in 2003, there were a number of reviews, and the review that I liked the most said, "It's still in Aramaic." Because I wanted the English to convey some of that strangeness. You know, if you explain a text, you really ruin it. And it's true with a great poem, it's true with any great piece of literature. And when I read a passage from the Zohar in a few minutes, I hope you'll get a sense of the power and the difficulty of the original. One more thing before we turn to the Sefirot. You know, someone asked before, what is the secret of the Zohar? And I think very wisely you refused to answer that, because the secret of the Zohar is really what each reader discovers in trying to make sense of the Zohar. In other words, you think that you're studying a text, but what the Zohar does is to force you to go within yourself. You think you're reading something that's out there, but really you're working on your own inner thought process, on your own inner emotions. You're trying to discover the beyond that is within you. And it's not so much in the Zohar, it's what the Zohar does to you as you're reading it and as you're perplexed by it. Let's take a look at this diagram of the Sefirot. I think you all have it, or you're at least sitting next to someone who has it. This, of course, is the basic symbol system of the Kabbalah and of the Zohar. And the passage that we're going to study in a few minutes is even more complicated than the Sefirot, because as Julian said, it also talks about Abba and Ima and Atika, Kadisha, the Holy Ancient One, various configurations. But since the Sefirot will figure in the passage we're reading, let me very briefly say a word or two about them. You could say this is a picture of God. Now, really, everybody should get up and walk out, because that's impossible in Judaism to depict God, of course. What saves us from a heresy, what saves that statement from being heretical, is that the true reality of God is the white space, and then extending off in all directions, right? In other words, ultimately, God is Ein Sof. That beautiful phrase in Hebrew, which means there is no end, the infinite. Ultimately, God is infinity. And the Kabbalah says that is really the only accurate name you can give to God. All of the other names of God, Adonai, Tzivaot, Shaddai, Elohim, all of those names refer to specific qualities of God, to one or another of these 10 Sefirot. Ultimately, God is simply unnameable. God is infinite. So ultimately, God is Ein Sof. What are the Sefirot? The Sefirot are aspects of the divine personality. We cannot understand, we cannot comprehend the infinity of God, but we can get some sense of specific qualities of God. These are often depicted as a human body, as an androgynous body, both masculine and feminine. And perhaps that's the secret of the Zohar. One of the secrets of the Zohar is that God is not Father, God is Father and Mother. God is equally masculine and feminine. In fact, the whole goal of the system is what? To unite the masculine and feminine halves of God. So Keter, the highest Sefirah, is a crown on the head of this divine androgynous being. Chochmah and Binah, the next two Sefirot, are father and mother, as Julian indicated. They are the father and mother who give birth to the 7 lower Sefirot. Specifically, Binah is the divine mother. She receives the seed from Chochmah, the father. She gives birth to the 7 lower qualities, Chesed on the right, Gevurah on the left. These are polar opposites. Chesed, divine love, Gevurah, divine power, or perhaps better understood as din, judgment. In fact, that sefirah is also called pachad, fear. So love and fear, chesed and pachad, are two polar opposites. Ideally, they are harmonized in tiferet, the beauty of God, but I think better understood as harmony, the harmony between right and left. Netzach and Hod are two minor versions of that same polarity, right and left. They're seen as the right and left legs. Chesed and Gevurah would be the right and left arms. Tiferet, the trunk of the body, the torso. Netzach and Hod, the right and left legs or thighs. And in fact, in the passage we're going to read, a very erotic passage, Netzach and Hod are the two testicles. The two testicles of the male body. Yesod is the most overtly erotic of all the sefirot, the phallus of God. This is why no one can study Kabbalah until they're already 40, right? Although Cordovero said until you're 20. So you have to be of some maturity because the secrets are erotic, because you're told to look deep within yourself, both that danger of spiritual search and the explicit erotic description of the passion of the divine couple. Those are two reasons why the Kabbalah was kept secret. So the union here is really between Tiferet, seen as the husband, and Malchut or Shekhinah, seen as the wife. Their union is the goal of all of Torah, the goal of all of life. How are they united? And this perhaps is the other secret of the Zohar. They are united only through our action. Only human action can unite the divine couple. How do we unite the masculine and feminine within God? By performing the mitzvot. You might say that every mitzvah is an aphrodisiac for the divine romance. If we act ethically, if we act virtuously, then we unite the divine couple, and then blessing flows into the world. So that very briefly is some of the highlights of the Sefirot. Let me say just a word or two more, and then I'll read you this passage from the Zohar. This is a passage from a section that's called the Idra Zuta. Idra is an Aramaic word which means an assembly, a gathering. So this means the small gathering, the Idra Zuta. Why is it called a small gathering? Because there's another gathering with a larger number of participants called the Idra Rabbah, the large gathering. Julian referring to both of these. The Idra Rabbah appears earlier in the Zohar. The Idra Zuta, the smaller gathering, is the presentation of the last teachings of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon is about to die. He's about to pass away as this section opens. And the Idra Zuta is a collection of his revelations of the deepest secrets of the Sefirot. Really the deepest erotic description, the most explicit erotic description in the whole Zohar is in this section called the Idra Zuta. Now I said Idra means gathering, but really it literally means a threshing floor. I hope that's translatable. A threshing floor, right, where the grain is threshed out, where the grain is threshed out, and he's also talking about threshing out the words of Torah, threshing out the secrets. So Rabbi Shimon is revealing the deepest secrets, and angels appear, souls of certain holy tzaddikim appear. But what's remarkable is that the death of Rabbi Shimon is actually a celebration. It's not a time of mourning, it's a time of celebration, and it's called by a very strange word in Aramaic. It's called the Hilulah, right? Le nos. The Hilulah is a wedding celebration. Why is Rabbi Shimon's death referred to as a Hilulah, as a wedding celebration? Because he is about to sail off and be united with Shekhinah. He is about to marry the feminine half of God. His death is seen as a reunion with God, specifically uniting with the Shekhinah. So he invites all of those who are present to come to his Hilulah, to come to his wedding. Just one or two more things you need to know. The hero, Rabbi Shimon, is referred to here as Botzina Kadisha, the holy lamp. He is the head of the whole Chevraya, the head of all the companions. He's called the holy lamp, but that same word, lamp, also refers to the very highest level of the Sefirot. So Rabbi Shimon shares a title with a name for the highest level of God. And there's something divine about the personality of Rabbi Shimon himself. The lower configuration of the Sefirot, really from Chesed through Yesod, right? Chochmah and Bina are seen as father and mother. Beneath them, the next 6 Sefirot, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, those 6 comprise the configuration, the Partsuf, the configuration of Ze'er Anpin, which really means impatient. This level of God is impatient compared to the higher, totally graceful configuration of Erach Apayim, or Atika Kadisha. Finally, at the very end, there'll be a reference to mouths of accusation. This refers to certain demonic powers, demonic forces. And the last thing I would say is, please don't try to understand everything. Just let the imagery flow over you. And some of it will be clear, some of it will be mysterious. But I think it's a good example of the Zohar's unique quality. It has been taught, on that day when the companions gathered in the house of Rabbi Shimon, and he was arranging his affairs to depart from the world, and before him were his son, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Abba, and the rest of the companions, and the house was full, Rabbi Shimon raised his eyes and saw that the house was filled. Rabbi Shimon wept and said, "The other time when I was on my sickbed, Rabbi Pinchas, son of Yair, was in my presence. And while I was selecting my place in paradise, they extended my life until now. When I returned, fire was whirling in front of me. It has never ceased, and no person has entered without permission. Now I see that it has ceased, and look, the house is filled." As they were sitting down, Rabbi Shimon opened his eyes and saw what he saw. Fire whirled throughout the house. They all left. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Abba remained. The rest of the companions sat outside. Rabbi Shimon rose and sat down. He laughed aloud, saying, "Where are the companions?" Rabbi Elazar rose and brought them in, and they sat before him. Rabbi Shimon raised his hands and offered a prayer and was joyful. He said, "Those companions who were present at the threshing house, at the Idra," meaning at that earlier assembly, the Idra Rabbah, "will convene here." They all left. There remained Rabbi Elazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yaakov, and Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Abba sat behind his back, and Rabbi Elazar in front of him. Rabbi Shimon said, "This hour is an hour of favor, and I want to enter without shame into the world that is coming. Here, holy words that I have not revealed until now, I wish to reveal in the presence of Shekhinah, before they say that I departed deficiently. This is why they were concealed in my heart, to enter with them into the world that is coming. I will arrange you like this. Rabbi Abba will write, Rabbi Elazar, my son, will repeat, and the rest of the companions will meditate in their hearts. Rabbi Abba rose from behind his back, and Rabbi Elazar, his son, remained seated. He said, Rise, my son, for someone else will sit in that place. Rabbi Elazar rose. Rabbi Shimon enwrapped himself and sat down. Rabbi Shimon opened, saying, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. From the Song of Songs. All the days that I have been bound to this world, I have been bound in a single bond with the Blessed Holy One. Because of this, his desire is for me, he and this whole holy entourage, to hear in joy concealed words and praise for the Holy Ancient One, concealed of all concealed, separated from all, yet not separate, for all are joined to it, and it is joined to all. It itself is all, ancient of ancients, concealed of all concealed, arrayed and not arrayed, arrayed in order to sustain all, not arrayed, for it cannot be found. Let me interrupt for a moment. Rabbi Shimon is describing that highest level of the divine, you could say Keter and Ein Sof, or what's called the Holy Ancient One. This is separate from all normal reality, and yet it's not separate, because the divine animates everything that exists. And what Rabbi Shimon is trying to explain here is the relation between the infinite and what is manifested, the boundless and the specific, the unnameable and those specific qualities of the Sefirot, those 9 lower Sefirot. Because Keter, that highest Sefirah, is really co-eternal as Ein Sof itself. When arrayed, it produces 9 radiancies flashing from it, from its array. Those radiancies go flashing and spreading in every direction, like a lofty lamp from which lights spread in every direction. Yet when one draws near those spreading lights to perceive them, nothing can be found but the lamp alone. So is the Holy Ancient One, supernal lamp, concealed of all concealed. Nothing can be found except for those spreading radiancies, revealed and hidden. They are called the Holy Name, and therefore all is one. Rabbi Shimon said, in the Idra, meaning in the Idra Rabbah, that earlier assembly, I did not reveal all, and all these matters were concealed until now. And I wanted to conceal them for the world that is coming, because there we are asked a question. Yet now the will of the Blessed Holy One is for this: surely without shame I will enter his palace. Until now these words have been concealed, for I feared to reveal. Now they have been revealed, yet it is revealed before the Holy Ancient One that I have not acted for my own glory or for the glory of my Father's house, but rather so that I will not enter his palace in shame. Let me interrupt. Why does he keep talking about shame? Because it's shameful to leave the world without teaching everything that you could possibly teach. So Rabbi Shimon wants to enter the world that is coming, having revealed everything that he can possibly reveal, and then he'll enter without shame. Furthermore, I see that the Blessed Holy One, along with all these truly virtuous ones here, confirm what I am doing. For I see all of them rejoicing in this, my Hilulah, my wedding celebration, and all of them are invited in that world to my wedding celebration. Happy is my share. Rabbi Abba said, when the holy lamp, the supernal lamp, meaning Rabbi Shimon, completed this utterance, he raised his hands and wept and laughed. He wanted to reveal one matter. He said, I have toiled over and been troubled by this matter all my days, and now they are not giving me permission. Summoning his strength, he sat up, murmured with his lips, and bowed 3 times. No one could look at his place, certainly not at him. He said, Mouth, mouth, who has attained so much, your spring has not dried up. Your spring flows forth ceaselessly. Okay, he's addressing his own mouth. He's trying to overcome his hesitation and his difficulty. Mouth, mouth, who has attained so much, your spring has not dried up. Your spring flows forth ceaselessly. Over you I proclaim the verse from Genesis, a river issues from Eden. And it is written in Isaiah, like a spring whose waters do not fail. Now I testify that all the days I have existed, I yearn to see this day, though my desire was not attained. For with this crown, this day is adorned. Now I wish to reveal words in the presence of the Blessed Holy One, for all of them crown my head. This day will not hasten to enter its place as another day, for the whole day is in my control. Now I begin to reveal matters, so that I will not enter shamefully into the world that is coming. Here I begin and speak. I have already said that all the lamps shining from the supernal lamp, concealed of all concealed, are illuminating rungs. By the light of every single rung is revealed what is revealed. Those lights are joined, light to light, shining into one another, inseparable from each other. The light of every single lamp, called crowns of the king, adornments of the king, shines from and is joined to that light within, not separating outward. So all ascends to one rung, all is crowned by one element, no separating one from another. It and its name are one. He's speaking of the union of the Sephirot, the specific crowns or adornments, and the hidden God, Keter or Ein Sof. The light that is revealed is called garment of the king. The light within, in that light is the one who is inexpressible and unrevealed. All those lamps and all those lights shine from the holy ancient one, concealed of all concealed, the supernal lamp. Upon contemplating all the lights spreading, there is nothing but the supernal lamp, hidden and unrevealed. The male extends on the right and the left through the inheritance that he receives. When colors combine, he is called Tiferet, beauty, and the entire body is arrayed as a great and mighty tree, beautiful and fine. As in the book of Daniel, beneath it the beasts of the field find shade, and in its branches dwell the birds of heaven, and there is food for all in it. His arms right and left. In the right, life and chesed. In the left, death and gevurah. His innards are configured with da'at, the hidden sephirah. And all porticos and chambers are filled, as I have said, for it is written in Proverbs, uvida'at, and by knowledge rooms are filled. Further, the body extends into 2 thighs, and joined between them are 2 kidneys and 2 testicles of the male, in which are gathered all the anointing oil and vigor of the male, of the whole body. All the powers issue from them, all pouring forth in the mouth of the phallus. Therefore they are called Sivaot, forces, namely Netzach and Hod. Tiferet, Yud-He Vav-He. Netzach and Hod, Tsivaot. Thus, Yud-He Vav-He, Tsivaot. Phallus of the male, consummation of the whole body, called Yesod. That is the very rung that sweetens the female. All the desire of the male toward the female inheres in this Yesod. Entering the female to the place called Sion and Yerushalayim, which is the place of covering of the female, like a woman's vagina. Therefore it is written, for Yud-He-Vav-He has chosen Sion, he desired her as his seat, from Psalms. When Matronita, Shekhinah, when Matronita is separated and conjoins with the king face to face on Shabbat Eve, all becomes one body. Then the Blessed Holy One sits upon his throne, and all is called the complete name, the holy name. May his name be blessed forever and ever. Rabbi Abba said, the words of Rabbi Shimon subsided. I was writing, intending to write more, yet I heard nothing. I did not raise my head, for the light was too great, and I could not look. Just then I trembled. I heard a voice saying, length of days and years of life, and peace they will add to you, from Proverbs. I heard another voice, quoting Psalms, life he asked of you, you gave it to him, length of days forever and ever. All that day fire did not cease from the house. No one reached him, no one could, since light and fire surrounded him all day long. I flung myself on the ground and wailed. After the fire disappeared, I saw that the supernal lamp, Holy of Holies, Rabbi Shimon, had departed from the world, enwrapped, lying on his right side, his face smiling. Rabbi Elazar, his son, rose, took his hands and kissed them. As for me, I licked the dust beneath his feet. The companions wanted to weep, but they could not utter a sound. Then their weeping began. Rabbi Elazar, his son, flung himself down 3 times, but could not open his mouth. Finally he opened, saying, Father, Father, 3 there were, into 1 they have turned. Now the beasts will flee, birds are flying away, sinking into the chasm of the great sea. Rabbi Chia rose to his feet and said, until now, the holy lamp has been watching over us. Now is solely the time to attend to his honor. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Abba arose. They carried him on a litter made of a ladder. Who has seen the confusion of the companions? And the whole house exuded fragrance. They lifted him onto a bier. Only Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Abba attended to him. Truculent stingers and shield-bearing warriors came from Sepphoris and Tiberias, and the inhabitants of Meron, banding together, shouted, for they feared that he would not be buried there. After his bier emerged, it rose in the air, fire flaring before it. They heard a voice, come and enter, gather for the wedding celebration of Rabbi Shimon. And quoting from Isaiah, he shall enter into peace. They shall rest upon their couches. As he entered the cave, they heard a voice inside. This is the man who shook the earth, who made kingdoms tremble. How many open mouths of accusation in heaven subside today because of you? This is Rabbi Shimon, son of Yohaï. in whom his Lord glories every day. Happy is his share above and below. How many supernal treasures are preserved for him? Of him is said, from the book of Daniel, as for you, go on till the end, and you will rest, and arise for your destiny at the end of days.